Happy Friday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead, and we're back after a pretty extensive break since basically, what was it? Probably Breeders' Cup. We're back with a live stream, and unfortunately for us, it seems like just weather is not cooperating. We got disasters left and right, and we were planning on maybe firing at some turfway and talking about the year in racing and kind of just having a nice little chill stream. And yeah, that apparently didn't happen. And then Mark, in typical Mark fashion, even tried to look at Delta Downs, and he couldn't even bet Delta Downs, which I mean is just saying a ton. We're gonna kind of skip on that, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna focus on our On the Wrong Lead Awards. We got some good awards. We got some positive ones. We got some negative ones, and it'll I think it'll be a little bit of fun. But I'll start with my usual co-host here. We'll start with Mr. Mark Capitan. Mark, did you actually fire at Delta?
I did fire at Delta because, I mean, even though I said I wasn't going to, I couldn't help myself. And I wouldn't say the awards are negative. They're just, our sort of slant where, the mainstream media can't quite bash on certain things, and we can. So we can have a little more fun with it, right? That's not negative. It's just us being us.
I mean, it's us being us. We're not bashing anybody. We're just voicing our opinions very strongly, and
Very
maybe they're a little
strongly
bit.
and in the public forum. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Speaking of public forums, we have Mr. Caleb Knight, who is now, I guess, firmly, somewhat set up in his new abode there. Because I don't think you were you moved in by the time we did Breeders? You were just moving
I was
in.
living here, but that's literally the weekend after I moved in was Breeders' Cup. I moved in on a Wednesday, so it was. I was living out of boxes, but I was under a roof that I own. Well, the bank owns that they let me live here.
Oh, hey, what generous people the bank is. You know what I mean? But yeah, no. I mean, no Turfway, no Oak Lawn, no Santa Anita. I mean, what are you gonna do with yourself this weekend, Caleb?
I know. I was looking forward because the holidays were kind of busy and a lot of traveling and stuff. So I was really looking forward to just settling in and playing some horses, and everything I wanted to bet just got canceled or is on fire or under snow or under wind or underwater, earth, wind, fire. What's the other pet song? Anyway, it's been no fun.
It's Earth, Wind, and Fire. You had the three.
Oh, I thought there was one more. Maybe that's Avatar. Anyway, disappointed, but hopefully we get a couple back tomorrow, but we'll see.
All right, and then not normally on our live streams, but a gentleman who is on plenty of On the Wrong Lead content, Mr. Matt Carlson. Matt, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing okay. You guys, there's Cal Expo running. There's some Charlestown running. I think Gold Coast has a good $300 in the pool right now for race one. You guys just need to kind of embrace degeneracy a little bit more. Make what you have, right? Otherwise, you got too much money in the ADW. It's never a good thing.
So by the way, I'm doing a fantasy draft right now for the NFL playoffs that I was told was going to start a half hour before this stream. So I thought I was going to have plenty of time to get the first couple of rounds done and go through. And what ends up happening, but no, it's actually 7:30. And so I'm just sitting here listening to you talk, and I hear this AI voice pop up. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? It was telling me I was on the clock, so I appreciate it. Luckily, there's no timer. So I could just sit here for an hour and a half if I wanted to, as I pick Baker Mayfield apparently. Because yeah, this is dude. All the quarterbacks were gone. I had to get something before I got snake bitten. But you're not here listening to me complain about fantasy, and obviously Andrew Champagne apparently is much too busy for us. But you know who's never too busy for us? The man who I think has never said no to us, Mr. Matthew DeSantis. Matthew, how are you doing?
No is not a word in my lexicon when it comes to you guys. A pleasure to be here. We are indeed running at Aqueduct. And listen, it was -3 degrees on with the wind chill on Thursday. So that was a little cold. So we canceled that. But glad to be back running again on the weekend. So, Doing well, man. Excited to talk about some annual awards. I always have my opinions about the Eclipse Awards, and we'll have to see how these shake out. But these are a little bit more fun.
Yeah. Andrew and I talked about his Eclipse Award ballot on Drank Champagne earlier this week, and we talked through some of the some of the stuff there, and honestly, just to touch on that stuff briefly, like they're pretty tried and true and kind of I don't want to say boring, but they're just a normal. Best horse, best sprinter, best turf horse, that kind of stuff, and all well and good. But I really felt like going through a lot of the list, like it seemed pretty like cut and dry. There wasn't, I think, a lot of, I think, like, I guess not nuance, but there wasn't a lot of like place for discussion. You know what I mean?
Well, what I think is interesting is arguably the biggest place for discussion is Horse of the Year. And I think that's where, voters are of different minds on Torpedo Anna and Sierra Leone and Fierceness. And, certainly Mike Rapoli has his opinion on that. And, and everybody seems to have their, Kenny McPeak, Lord knows, probably has his. But you're right. I mean, I think most of the categories are pretty cut and dry. I think you can try to be cute maybe with a couple. And, if you want to give, a horse an edge over another in some instances. Sometimes it depends how much you prioritize those Europeans making one start in North America, and whether or not you then take in the whole body of work, and whether or not you decide to abstain from 8 or 9 categories like our good friend Andrerosa. So everybody's got their own decisions, including like just not voting and not not taking it seriously. So that's good.
I feel like I'm being called out with the taking Euros with one start in the United States after we see some of the things I picked.
Yeah,
it's people are of two minds on that. I don't mind it, but it's just because the rules are once you run once in North America, you're open for consideration. So I consider them just as much as a horse that's made every start in North America.
Yeah, and I had we did this probably 2 or 3 years ago, and we were pretty cut and dry, and it was basically Eclipse Awards kind of stuff, and we got a fair bit of responses. We got a pretty good turnout this time as well, not nearly as much as the first time we did it, but I know obviously with the holidays and everything, stuff gets busy for people, but yeah, like. When I was going through, we talked about, hey, what category should we do? And then, Caleb was like, let's burn it all down and let's go full Caleb on all these things. So, we named some of these fun little things, but I really do think that there's one Eclipse Award I want to have a brief discussion about before we get into the main thing. And it's because I'm very curious what everyone's thought is on 3-year-old male horse of the year. Because Andrew and I did not see eye to eye on it, and it seemed like he thought it was a bit of a coin flip. So I figure we have 5 people here. I'm curious if it really is a coin flip. So, Mark, I will start with you. If you were a voting member, who would your 3-year-old horse of the year be?
Sierra Leone.
Okay, Andrew Champagne. That's one for Andrew. Frozen Caleb. Who did you go
Frozen?
With? Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I think it's Sierra Leone. I don't think it's all that close.
Yeah. Okay, that's 2 for Andrew. Matt Carlson.
Matt Carlson. Sorry, Matt. Go.
I got to go Sierra Leone as well. I mean, horse won the biggest race when it counted, right? Learn how to run straight. It matters what you do at the end of the year.
And Matthew.
Yeah, make it a clean sweep. No coin flip. Sierra Leone got my vote.
Okay. Well, I guess I was the only one in the fierceness. I felt crazy.
So let me see that check that Rapoli cut you. I mean,
dude, I feel absolutely crazy because I legitimately did a video for the Kentucky Derby that was something like Sierra Leone will not win the Kentucky Derby or something, and I remember somebody replied and was like, "Thank you for saying this. Like, I just put another, $150 on fierceness, and shout out to that guy for proceeding to light more money on fire. But
So I gotta ask here, fierceness. I mean, what's your argument for fierceness? That the
I mean, just
Travers
consistency.
In Florida Derby is worth more than the Breeders' Cup Classic?
I mean, yeah, okay. If he would have just ran an absolute dud in the Breeders' Cup Classic, I would agree. But I mean, I hate this saying, but I mean, maybe he ran the best race in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I don't know.
Like Josh,
don't
I
know.
get what you're saying because I think Fierceness is a better horse than Sierra Leone. I honestly do, but I think Sierra Leone has 0 clunkers. I mean, he was a nose from the Derby winner. He won the Breeders' Cup. I mean, he's always been essentially in the money in every big dance this year, and you just can't say that about Fierceness. He clunked real bad in the Derby. I mean, his one of his Derby preps, the Florida Derby or Fountain of Youth, one of them was terrible. I forget which one.
Holy Bull. Yeah.
Holy Bull. Thank you.
Holy Bull.
So like he's just been. If consistency is your argument, I think it has to be Sierra Leone. Even if I do think Fierceness, maybe beats him 6 times out of 10 in a common race.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. We're going to talk about Sierra Leone, I think, later on in this week and in this show. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to start here with our first award, right? And that is the Commandperformance Award, aka the biggest disappointment. And I'll tell you right now, when Google Forms kind of does this fun little thing where it'll send you a chart, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, tell you how many. This one, it's literally, I think every single response was different. So I think part of it is because people spelled things incorrectly, because I decided to leave this wide open. So I'm obviously looking at a spreadsheet here, but I honestly I think the winner only basically was the only one that got multiple votes, which I thought was interesting. But I will open it up to the floor. Anyone want to take a shot and talk about what they picked for this award here?
I mean, I'll kick us off. Yeah, I put White Abario down for this award, and this is a horse that's kind of been all over the place throughout his career. And I kind of gave it to him because he's disappointed me twice, like at 2 separate, very distinct stages of his career. He was like a very promising 3-year-old, then kind of went way off the rails, and then came back in the Dutrow barn and was the best older horse in training last year. And then once again this year kind of went way off the rails. I mean, I think he has 3 or 4 races this year. He had one kind of soft win and then a couple of pretty bad losses, including, last time out when he was just never in position. I mean, it just looked like he really looked like he lost a step. He's now back with Safi, I think. So I was hoping older male dirt division is kind of a division that always needs help, it seems like. I was kind of hoping maybe he'd be able to carry that form over after just a shattering second half of 2023, and that didn't happen. So for me, I was pretty disappointed that he wasn't able to kind of continue on that trajectory, although perhaps not totally surprised.
Yeah, I took kind of a weird path at this one, and I ended up on Rich Strike, who was a horse that didn't even run this year. And I think that was more the disappointment. He was retired, potentially had a stud deal, then was unretired, and then had an injury, and then was moved into the Bill Mott barn, and now apparently he's retired again, and they now can't get him a stud deal. And I think the biggest disappointment portion of that for me is the fact that he's a horse with some talent. Is he a world beater? No. Is he a legit all-day G1 talent? No, he's not. But he's a trier. He seems like a solid, decent enough horse, and he was just horribly mismanaged. He's been horribly taken care of his entire career, and he's just one of those horses that you're like, I'm disappointed that I didn't get to see him bring his best stuff more often and more consistently. So horse that I didn't even run this year was my biggest disappointment, but I could probably make a case for about 10 other horses. So it's the category is wide open.
Yeah, I'll jump in and I agree. I think the category is wide open. In fact, I had to think for about 5 minutes while Caleb and Mark were talking about who I actually voted for this award, because I honestly forgot. because there were several different candidates I think you could go for. And I kind of took a page out of Mark's book where it's not so much the horses disappointing as much as the campaign just ultimately ended up being disappointing. And that was Nisos, a horse for Bob Baffert that I think all of us were very, very high on. I thought he was better than Muth, who we ended up seeing win the Arkansas Derby. And I just, like I said, I mean, it was just too bad. We never really got to see that horse at his full potential. And, again, I think you could say the same thing for a horse like Locked, who at least we got to see now at the end of the year come back and win the Cigar Mile and maybe show some promise towards a 2025 campaign that could be pretty exciting as a likely favorite in the Pegasus World Cup later this month. So, for me, it was Nisos. Again, I think you could pick a lot of horses. I guess one of the reasons this was a tough category for me was I just did not have very high expectations for a lot of horses. That a lot of the horses that were coming back, I just was not that bullish on. And I kind of felt like there would be this void this year. And thankfully, we ended up with a really great 3-year-old crop with horses like Sierra Leone and Fierceness and Torpedo Anna and Locked and others who are going to make this a more competitive division next year or this coming year as we move forward. But yeah, for me, it was Nisos just because I really wish I could have seen that horse at full strength the whole season.
Matt, I think that leaves you.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm going to cross over, and part of the benefit of doing this and not the Eclipse Awards is I can go kind of out of the continent and go to HK. My biggest disappointment was No Balls, right? The same sort of thing that Mark said, a horse that's not running. I mean, for me, the thing I was looking forward to most all year was seeing that horse run in Hong Kong. And do I think that horse was going to win in Hong Kong? No, I think he probably would have lost by 30 lengths, but at least I wanted to know, right? That horse shipped all the way over there to then not run. And to me, that was the biggest disappointing moment of the year because, I mean, that's my world's crossing, right? Now, granted, No Balls, I think, is running tomorrow if Turfway actually runs, although E.T. Barrett is not on that horse. So that might be my biggest disappointment of 2025. But yeah, I mean, that's where I went with this, right? I mean, I was super excited for that race. I think I posted on Twitter like 2 or 3 times. And then to have that horse scratch out was, I think, just a moment that I was looking forward to in racing that never came to fruition.
I'll jump back in and Matt, I'm really glad you mentioned kind of age in racing because it got me thinking about another horse that I think probably fits the Commandperformance identity a little bit better. At least for me, Dermisota Gake was an incredibly disappointing horse this year. Yeah. A horse that I think so many of us were high on as a 3-year-old off that UAE Derby victory, off what was a tough trip in the Kentucky Derby where he really tried hard and closed and really ran well. But, before Forever Young came this year, was one of the best Japanese finishers ever in the Kentucky Derby, and then comes off that long layoff and runs second to White Abarrio in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And I think we all assumed, hey, this is a horse that's loaded for bear. He ran well in the Middle East before. He's going to go to the Saudi Derby. He's going to go to the Saudi Cup. He's going to go to the Dubai World Cup. And he's going to be a major player in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And just none of those things really materialized for him. And so that was a horse that I personally love and I'm very high on. He's a quirky horse. And I find myself rooting for him. But he very disappointing. Fell flat every single race, it felt like.
Yeah, Jessica Tugwell in chat saying she had to go with the horse who was the reason the Kentucky Derby didn't count this year. It could only manage a listed stake win after the Arkansas Derby. I believe she's talking about Nisos, right?
It's probably Muth, isn't it?
Oh, no, because Muth was Muth.
Yeah, Muth won the shared belief, yeah.
Dude, I was like, I thought it was Muth, but then I was like, looked it up, and Muth is 4. Well, duh, it's January, so of course Muth is 4. Goodness gracious. I'm like sitting here, I'm like, yeah, Muth sounds fine. Yeah, thank you. And Jessica saying Muth. As you can tell, this is we're a little rusty here, but I actually went with a different Bob Baffert horse, I actually went with Arabian Night. Yeah. I thought after the long layoff, I was at the San Diego where he came back, and I mean, I was all in. I'm like, this is gonna be just an absolute just blowout we're gonna see, and yeah, that just did not happen. And I think we've talked a little bit about the streak of Derby horses that haven't really come back and won another race, and it always seemed like Bob's horses, love them or hate them, would still run later on in their 3-year-old season if they won the Derby or if they ran at 4. And it just seems like even his older horses aren't really firing. I'm not sure. Did Muth get retired, or is he going to run at 4?
I haven't heard anything about a retirement,
No?
so
Okay.
I haven't either.
yeah.
I mean,
it's
he
kind of
might.
a little late now, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he might do something this year. I don't know. We'll see. But
You say it's a little late, but they're going to run Senior Buscador apparently in Saudi Cup and then ship him. So he's going to miss the first part of the breeding season, and they're going to ship him back to breed.
Oh, really?
So,
Yeah.
I do see Moose listed
Yeah.
as retired, by the way. So
oh,
is he?
okay.
Mm.
Darn. But yeah. So I mean, I can go through a couple of other good ones. I see Golden Gate closing. Someone put for biggest disappointment, but then also put Nisos in the same answer. So that's actually what broke the tie here. Is that Nisos was multiple. So congratulations to our winner of biggest disappointment, Nisos. Point to Matthew DeSantis over there for getting that one right.
Man of the people. There you go. Just
But yeah. Golden Gate closing. Obviously, I'm gonna guess that was our friend Andrew Champagne that put that. Yeah, that's just it just sucks. Seeing any track close is always disappointing. I see a vote for Dragoon Guard, which I mean, I
that's
don't.
the Mr. Money light horse.
Yeah.
It was on for the C tier stakes races. Okay.
Yeah. One that I thought of. I couldn't. This was crossed my mind, but I couldn't give it to this horse because of how good he ran the rest of the year. But Cogburn, someone had Cogburn specifically in the Breeders' Cup as the vote for biggest disappointment. I did think that particular moment was pretty disappointing. I think for Cogburn, it was not disappointing for Mark Capitan whatsoever.
It wasn't disappointing for me either. And
Nope.
I would say it was not disappointing for Cogburn as much as it was disappointing for Irad Ortiz Jr., who doesn't know how to ride on the lead. But other than that, I think it was perfectly fine. So it's not the horse's fault. I mean, that's the other thing that we're going to talk about later, which is how much do you penalize a horse versus how much do you penalize a jockey for just not knowing how to ride a horse. So, there's a couple of horses that fit into that category this year for different awards.
I gotta say it. I see Mark Capitan as an answer in biggest disappointment. So Mark, I don't know, I don't know who you upset or what happened, but you apparently got a vote. So what do you have to say for yourself?
I'm sure I did something to deserve that. That's clearly warranted. So I'm okay with it.
That's somebody from Delta writing in that you're not wagering enough down there or something like that.
They're gonna have to turn the lights off at Vinton or something. Yeah.
I do have to call it this one voter because they gave very, very detailed answers to every single one of their responses. So I think they're going to probably get mentioned every single time we talk about this. But he said King's Plate canceled and rescheduled to a day nobody was there to see it. Blame Tim and Jim Lawson for that F up. So he gave us all his thoughts on that, and that was pretty wild to have that kind of get canceled, and then basically if you traveled for it or anything, I mean you were kind of screwed. So
that was a crazy few weeks where we had the 4-star Dave have to get rescheduled, and you had all these cancellations, and you had all this stuff going on. So that was a tough stretch. And I have a feeling I know exactly who wrote that answer too. And so, yeah.
Was that right around when Tampa's Tote went down too, or was that I'm mixing up?
Tampa's Tote was back in the spring for the
That was last year.
Yeah, because it's domestic product.
Whoa, yeah. What a year, man! Oh,
yeah.
The entire handicap division got one. Obviously no ball scratching. We already talked about that. Obviously we talked about Muth. Someone put Ways and Means, which I could kind of see. I was, but then kind of ended up backing it up a little bit later on in the year. So, yeah, I don't know. But congratulations, Nisos. You won the Commandperformance award here for biggest disappointment, and that's going to lead us into our next category, which is named after the beautiful frozen man in the top right, the Caleb Knight Award, the worst ride of the year. And Caleb, I have a feeling that if it weren't for one gentleman, you would have had a hard time, and you probably could have like gone up here and you probably could have just sit here and waxed poetic on numerous races. But you know, this one actually interestingly, the people were pretty dead set on what the winner in this was. But honestly, I think all of us did all of us have a different one? We might have all had a different one except for Caleb and I. Caleb and I think, zeroed in on one gentleman in particular. So, Caleb, you want to go or you want me to go?
Why don't you start it off?
I mean, I get not knowing about, where the finish line is when it's a short finish line. Like, I get it, right? And it happens, right? I remember, heck, it happens when you bet. I've told this story before. My brother, the most angry and animated I've ever seen him was when Arlington Park, we're sitting there, it's like race 3, and it's a short finish, and he's got this Carlos Marquez horse that's closing like a freight train, doesn't get there, and then Carlos stands up, right? Well, my brother, thinking it's at the main finish line, he's like, "What the hell are you doing, Marquez?" He's just giving it to him, yelling at him. And obviously, if you've ever been to Arlington Park, there's basically a small apron, and then it's just like seating, like kind of bleacher seating that goes up. So Marquez absolutely hurt him, and he's just giving it to him. And I'm like, Fred, like it was the first finish line. He's like, oh, right. So even bettors mess it up, right? It happens. But how do you not only get awarded Jockey of the Week, literally that, I believe the same week or the week after,
Yeah.
and then do it again? Once is forgivable. I think everybody was pretty much like, hey, it was a mistake. It wasn't on purpose. You got to suspend him, right? And they gave him 3 days or something. They gave him an award, and then he does it again, less than a month later. Just give me a break. Luan Machado, be better. Caleb, anything to add?
No, I think you covered it. This wasn't a year that my mind can immediately jump to like one specific ride that I thought was just out of this world terrible. There were some bad ones, don't get me wrong, but so yeah, normally I'd just go pull up the most recent Rosario replay and see what he was up to. But for this one, I couldn't really find too much. I think that's such a mistake. The horse was so much the best, and it cost my dad the pick 4, which is also why I have to give it to Luan Machado a little bit, because
I forgot about that.
Would have been a nice score for him. So yeah, just inexcusable. It's like, it's like a wide receiver forgetting where the end zone marker is, the sideline is, or you can't do that. So yeah, Luan Machado, you had a good year, you did, but your most memorable event this year is unfortunately not for a good reason.
Mark, I'll let you go next, because you actually, I believe, have one in here that is also brought up by somebody else in a different category, interestingly.
Oh, really? Or somebody else who kind of tipped me off to this, who's somebody who's actually in on stream right now. I put down Sheldon Russell every single time he rides post time. Post time is no world beater. He's not the best horse ever, but he should have had an absolutely phenomenal season. There's a pretty good argument to be made that he is, he wins a couple of those races. Honestly, yeah, he wins a couple more big races. If Sheldon, every time he jumped on the horse, didn't think he was riding Secretariat and keep him 3 wide around all the corners and save no ground, and you watch it and you're like, dude, what are you doing? You're not riding that level of horse. Save some ground. Don't be a moron. Tuck him in around the corners, and he just doesn't. So I mean, I thought there were 3 horses that really sort of jumped out at me, three specific rides that jumped out at me, and I wanted to pick something different. So I'll give it to Sheldon Russell this year.
Matthew DeSantis, I feel like I need to let the people know that the entire reason you're on stream is because of this that you wanted to talk about.
So, yeah, I'm going to talk about the French Strangler, as our good friend calls him, Florent Geroux. I could name any number of rides that Flo gives as the worst ride of the year. The ride he gave Highland Falls, honestly, into the Monmouth Cup, truly baffling. If you don't believe me, watch Highland Falls win the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup when he got a jockey up on him who had something going on between his ears and knew how to ride the horse effectively, like Flavian Pratt did, who, oh, by the way, is a finalist and going to win Jockey of the Year for the Eclipse Awards. And this is what I was getting to with the category in the Eclipse Awards for older dirt female. Because I think there's a legitimate argument between Adair Manor and Idiomatic. They have very, very comparable resumes, 2 Grade 1s, and Adair Manor is a Grade 2, Idiomatic is a Grade 3. Florent Geroux is the reason Idiomatic, if Idiomatic for some reason loses that award, it's because of Florent Geroux. The horse should have been 5 for 5 this year. No question about it. He cost that horse 2 races. He rode way too arrogantly in the Ogden Phipps early. He pulled a Sheldon Russell mark. He kept that horse 3 wide around both turns, acted like he had Secretariat under him, and that it was not going to be an issue. And Raging Sea got, or was it Raging Sea who was up on the front end? Who got old Cat's horse?
Randomized.
Yeah, and got away with murder and was able to kind of go up on the front end and get away with it. And then, and then in the personal ensign decided, oh, well, you know what's really a good idea? How about I battle this horse on the inside, win the battle, lose the war, and just a disastrous result there. And then I was in hand. I was there when Idiomatic won the Monmouth Cup in spite of Geroux, when that horse went about 51 and change being strangled on the front end. And Geroux was literally startled when Irad Ortiz Jr. came up on him with Safi's horse, and you could see him physically be shocked in the saddle that a horse was coming at him, completely caught unaware. And thank God Idiomatic is the beast that she is, because she just battled for 3 straight furlongs with that horse, which is not her running style at all, to have to suddenly accelerate and really get pushed like that. And it is baffling to see the way he rides horses. And, he is riding for arguably one of the top trainers in the game. He gets the number 1 mount for Brad Cox so many times. He is on a monster 99 times out of 100 when he is in these races. And I've never seen somebody do less with more than Florent Geroux on a horse. So, at least with somebody like Joel Rosario, who admittedly gives some of the worst rides you will see, like Rating Silver Skillet and things like that. Like, you're just baffled by it with some of the things he does. At least Rosario gives you the brilliance, and he reminds you why he's a Hall of Famer every other race, in between those. And with Geroux, listen, I could come back next year. We're going to have the same exact discussion. And it's just befuddling to me. And so I will stop my rant. I appreciate you having me on. This is my TED Talk, and I thank you for your time and patience.
Well, the interesting part about Flo too is I forgot there was a horse. There was a horse. What was it? This is 2 years ago, and I already forgot what horse it was, but he was absolutely on the it was an aggressive horse. Like, it was a horse that wanted to be on the front end, and he rode it aggressively every single time. It was a Derby Trail horse. I forgot. It was a fairgrounds horse, And like, sure enough, like I'm like, look, he does know how to ride on the lead. He does know how to be aggressive. And then, I feel like it after that year kind of just like regressed to the mean. But yeah, he's a frustrating one for sure. Matt Carlson, you are last up on this one, and the other unique answer. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I almost answered all the ones that have already been discussed, but I probably went a little bit different way. And I went with Paco's ride on national law parks because I think of all the things that have happened this year, right? I mean, I criticize jockeys all the time and I say, hey, I would have won if not for that terrible ride. And I'm 6 feet tall. I've never ridden a horse in my life. I probably will never ride a horse in my life. I'm not a jockey. And so it's easy for me to criticize and say, hey, these guys suck at their jobs. But what you can't do is whip a horse in the eyeball. And I'm happy Paco is suspended, and I hope he's suspended for much, much longer because of all the things that I saw this year, of all the bad, things that might have happened with what jockeys did. That's far and away the worst. And I don't think it's a question. So, funny enough, right? I mean, the immediate defense of that was from Jorge Duarte saying, well, what a great ride it was to keep that horse in and not run into the gate and all that. And I mean, the ride itself might have been okay, but what happened after is indefensible. So that's where I had to go because there's no place for that in our game. And I think it gives this game a bad name when it's got enough bad things to talk about.
Yeah.
Well said.
Very well said.
All right. Well, I mean, no surprise to anybody. Luan Machado basically ran away with this. So I guess we'll talk about a couple that weren't Luan Machado, and I think there were only two that were not Luan Machado. One was Frankie Dettori on Imagination in the Preakness Stakes.
I get that. That's
interesting,
fair.
man.
Yeah,
That is fair. That was a bad ride. Yeah.
I was because the Preakness Stakes was when the gray horse got loose and just won.
He's the gray just went straight to the lead. Yeah.
So what was that? What was the thing with Dettori that race?
He intentionally rated and shouldn't have. I mean, he stayed on the outside and just rated and on a horse that clearly needed the lead and didn't pass other horses. And then you're going to put a horse that doesn't pass other horses behind other horses. I mean, that just doesn't seem like a very good strategy. So, yeah, and it just seeded the entire race to Seize the Gray, and who, yes, got 2 grade ones this year, and I would say it had a remarkably similar trip in both of them, where just bafflingly that horse got just given the lead in the Pennsylvania Derby and the Preakness and was able to win both of them.
Can I argue that Dettori's worst ride of the year was when he left Saratoga early and didn't actually physically ride his mount?
That was amazing. That was just, yeah.
I think dude,
had a mount in the last race.
Anyway, I just wanted to call that out.
Dude, one of the absolute just, I mean, talk about ways to lose a pick X, whatever it is. This was at Gulfstream Park. It was a force out, pick 6 force out, and I think I'm in the payoff leg, and I got 2 horses, and one is a speed horse that has Paco Lopez aboard on the dirt, and I'm just like, I mean, we've talked plenty of crap about Paco and his antics, right? But the one thing the guy knows how to do is get a horse on the lead and go, and they're loading into the gate, and I'm like, that's not Paco Lopez on that horse. Apparently, Paco had gotten like DQ'd the race or 2 before, and was so mad he just left. He just left because he got DQ'd, and I forgot who it was because it was like a full field of it was like some random bug or something that like some jock I didn't even know or maybe worse, maybe it was Luca Panici or whatever, I don't know, but it was just awful, and the horse didn't even get the lead, and my ticket was just dead, and man, leaving before the thing's done, pulling who just did that, Tyreek Hill, right? Didn't he just pull that move off?
Yeah. Dolphins, yeah.
Yeah, and the Dolphins, I've lost a ton of money betting the Dolphins this year. So I think it's a good time to go into Money Burner of the Year. We put horse or jockey on here just to leave it nice and wide open. And I almost wanted to call Andrew Champagne to give out this award because I thought it would have been funny seeing as what our discussion was earlier. But we will start, Matt. We'll start with you because I think it kind of ties into what or Matt Carlson, excuse me, because it ties into what Mark said last award.
Yeah, I put Post Time. Post Time might be the older male third horse of the year if he had actually gotten competent rides. That horse is, I think Mark said it well. You have no idea how good that horse is because he has never given enough chance to run. That horse I lost so much money on, but not for lack of talent, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, it's I'm going to keep burning money on that horse.
Do you know what your exact answer was?
Because of Sheldon Russell every time.
Yes, Sheldon because of Sheldon Russell was in parentheses. So yes, I thought it was funny.
Same exact answer.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly.
That's perfect.
And just so you guys know, like I didn't know what you guys like selected. Like I was trying to do some prep and like figure out what we put, but then everyone's like, "Oh, I don't remember what I put down." So I was like, "All right, well, hopefully everyone remembers Commandperformance, and then I can dig through and figure it out because Commandperformance, everybody went somewhere different." So I thought when I initially saw this, I thought that this was Matthew DeSantis, not Matthew Carlson. But then I was like, wait, maybe Matthew DeSantis was the other Post Time one because Matthew, you talk about Post Time. I mean, every time that guy runs, you're like, I don't even want to watch. Like, I can't watch that horse run anymore. Like I just can't. Like I just physically can't.
Honestly, what's crazy is like maybe one of the worst rides was the race that he won when he won the Carter, and it's like Sheldon Russell never watched Super Chow run before and had no idea that Super Chow lugs out every single time the horse runs, and he was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get to the outside of Super Chow, and we'll see what happens, and I'm sure this is going to work out great. And that was one where I was like, maybe they're going to run into the winner's circle while I'm standing here because like they're just getting closer and closer. And I mean, thank God that was a 4-horse field that was not particularly good because, just in spite of his efforts, Post Time was able to win that race. But what's funny is, you mentioned, Josh, you mentioned Andrew giving out this award. My answer was the horse that I also gave for horse of 3-year-old male of the year, which is Sierra Leone. Was the Money Burner of the Year. Incredibly consistent horse, but the combination of the Kentucky Derby, the Jim Dandy, and the Travers, where he went off, he took a ton of money, all 3 of those races, and he ran his race, and he runs, to Matt's point, like he's running kind of all over the place sometimes, and doesn't show the sort of maturity sometimes, just stay straight. They're changing jockeys. They're changing bits. They're trying to figure out everything with this horse. And, he just took a ton of money. And what was so funny was, I know we were talking about this at the Breeders' Cup, and I was talking with several other people where everybody said, wouldn't it be funny if this was finally the time where Sierra Leone wins after he's burned everybody's money for the whole year betting him, and now he wins the biggest race of the year. And that's exactly what ended up happening. But I thought Sierra Leone, as consistent as he is, unless you put a show bet on him every single race, you lost a lot of money. And I know, I zigged. I avoided him a couple of times, but then I fell into the trap a couple of times too. So I guess maybe I broke even on him this year, but definitely burned some money.
Sierra Leone was one of three Derby horses I was really, really leveraged to. Sierra Leone. Who was the Brad Cox horse that was basically Sierra Leone?
Just in time.
No, the other one.
Just a touch.
The deep closer that I don't think has run since. Oh, why am I forgetting the name? No, well, I don't know. Dude, the Derby feels like years away. Like years. Like I don't remember the Derby. I don't even remember this horse that I'm thinking of. He didn't. I don't think he ran a step. Then there was 4 horses. Then there was the
Honor Marie, wasn't it?
No. Then there was the Beckman Whitworth Honor Marie horse. That was that one. I also had a bunch, and then it was Forever Young. So of course, I run 2-3, and the funniest part about it is I used
Catching
Mystic
Freedom.
Dan.
That's who it was.
Catching Freedom.
Catching
Thank
Freedom.
you. Yeah. The funny thing is that I used Mystic Dan all over the try and super, I believe in third and fourth. And my buddy who was hosting a party and like he didn't look at a form or anything. He comes up to me, he's like, look, I only want horses that are 15 or 20 to 1 or more. Just give me like 2 long shots I can bet. And so I was like, well, Mystic Dan, I think, can run like third, maybe second. Like, I mean, yeah, he's a good price. Why don't you use him? And he put like 100 to win on him. And he's just like, thank you so much. I'm like, good. I'm glad somebody made money because I didn't hit a damn thing because of this stupid thing. But yeah, Catching Freedom was another one that I was very leveraged to. Jessica Tell was saying Encino, but no, it's Catching Freedom. Matthew, I was right there with you on Sierra Leone. Honestly, I almost put just as a, I don't know, I guess to laugh and to make fun of Andrew, I almost put Fierceness in here to be because it was my 3-year-old of the year.
Sure.
And I thought, hey, that'd be funny, right? Or, but really, like with Fierceness, it was only the one time he burned me because I was against him all the other spots. But the one time he burned me was the Breeders' Cup Classic that Sierra Leone won. I was all over Fierceness. Oh my God, that was tough. That was a tough one to take.
And to your point, Josh, earlier, I mean, that was such a good effort that it's hard to say that he's a money burner when he ran that good of a race. And yeah, I mean, he burned your money, and certainly, that never feels good. But I think that effort's different from the Kentucky Derby where he just packed it up and just was a complete non-factor as the favorite. And so, that's tough. That's really tough.
I think I'm gonna go to Caleb, but hold on, I need a sound effect before this starts. Where is it? Is it this one? Caleb, who is your money burner of the year?
Yeah, so Matt Carlson actually already tagged this one, or in his disappointment of the year. And I went with no balls in this race, or in this category rather. I struggled with this because, I mean, I guess Sierra Leone's kind of obvious, but I didn't want to go that way because he did win a couple big races. So I kind of went back and forth, and I just couldn't really land on a horse I loved that cost me a ton of money necessarily. So I thought no balls, in hindsight, maybe a slightly better fit for disappointment of the year than Money Burner, given he only raced, I think, 3 or 4 times. But he was a horse that I know all of us, or a lot of us, were, really happy about the success that he had in the Breeders' Cup, and put together a couple of nice races, one at Keeneland and then again. So for him to come back and kind of, just not be very good this year objectively, a few times he was chasing Cogburn, which maybe there's no shame in that, but he was never even close in most of those races. I think he did win some cupcake race recently up at Woodbine, I think, but shy of that, he's been not good this year. And I tend to think horses that kind of pop off in the Derby or the Breeders' Cup that didn't have a very strong body of form prior to that oftentimes end up being money burners for the rest of their career. So it kind of seems like he might be on that path as well.
We might not be on speaking terms anymore, Caleb. Mark, that leaves you.
Yeah, so you guys mentioned Sierra Leone, so I'm going to talk about his original jockey before he was taken off, and that's Tyler Gaffleone. I think when you talk about North American jockeys, there's always this argument of who's the best, and there's always this, there's this couple of guys that are the elite jockeys, and I always hear Tyler Gaffleone lobbed in with that elite top tier go, yada, yada, yada jockey. And he is just a chronic money burner as a jockey. I think he's just massively overrated. It's hilarious. I pulled up Equibase's jockey profile on him. And when you're looking at a jockey who is, third by wins, second in earnings almost every year, he's up there in the big numbers, but he just never gets it done on the big stage. He's a jockey that his career highlight is he won the Preakness in 2019, and then he won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint in 2022. And beyond that, it is just a bunch of seconds and thirds. He's a jockey that he gets the best of top tier, Chad Brown Brown and that sort of caliber mounts, and he's just a chronic disappointment. And I think you see that a lot with the sort of Sierra Leone situation where couldn't quite figure the horse out. Now, I realized the horse had quirks, but it just seems like Gaff Leone is a jock that he's talked about like he is, in that elite or Rad and Pratt, or maybe just a slight notch below them. And I just think he's just massively overrated. And he's the kind of jockey who, if he's on your horse, which is supposed to be a world beater, you just don't feel comfortable. And I know we've said that about a few jocks, but I know for me, he's one that I just I chronically feel like he hurts me, and I'm just never comfortable.
Let's have a little fun here. Have you guys ever watched or listened to Fantasy Focus, which is a fantasy football podcast? It's pretty old. Okay, so they used to have something called Name Game, right? So basically, they would take a player, right, and then they would just start naming other players and basically say, who would you prefer, X or Y, right? So we'll take Tyler Gaff Leone, and we'll start. We'll start just to make it really obvious. We'll say Sheldon Russell, Tyler Gaff Leone, right? Which
Poor
I
Sheldon
think
Russell's
everyone
getting all the shade.
Which of course everyone would be like, okay, Tyler Gaff Leone, right? Okay, so so just out of curiosity, right? Because I think right, Tyler's definitely top 10 jockey going right now. I mean I think he's fine, but I think I agree with you, Mark. I feel like. He hasn't taken that turn into basically turning into Flavian Pratt, I don't necessarily know if he's taken. Well, here perfect start. Tyler Gaff Leone or Flo Giroux?
Oh, Gaff Leone.
Can we get Sheldon back? Maybe get Sheldon on him. I mean, I'd probably take Tyler over that. The other thing, and Mark, I don't know what your thoughts are. Like Tyler in Kentucky is a different beast from Tyler in a lot of other places.
There's
think.
A lot of there's a lot of with a lot of those Kentucky jocks, but
there is.
The thing is, let's not talk about that tier. Somebody like a Manny versus him, I would take Manny.
Manny, for sure.
Right? And I think of Manny is not being a super top
Josh
tier
is not
elite
having
jock,
that.
but I would much rather take Manny, right? Like, and there's
Okay,
a lot of jocks like that.
I want to. No, all right, we're putting a stop to that. That is absolutely ridiculous.
What about Les Connor, Josh?
Oh. Oh God, dude, I cannot believe you guys. I cannot believe what you guys are saying. Yeah, I mean it's just I don't know. I do think though that you're right, Mark. Like, if I had billions and billions of dollars, right, and I had a top horse with who's a pretty jockey agnostic trainer that doesn't have a guy, Shug maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say Shug's probably good. I mean, he uses Tyler, but he's pretty good.
Well, okay, Shug, right? And let's just we're gonna say tier one. What I consider S tier jockeys, basically the two S tier jockeys are unavailable, right? And that's Irad and Flavian, right? Those two guys aren't available. I mean, like Tyler, like what number is he on your call list? I mean, I'm calling Jose before him. I'm calling. I mean, me personally, I'm calling Joel before him. But I also realize I'm a sadistic fool who just wants to see what's going to happen. But
I would rather use somebody like a Juan Hernandez before him. I would rather use.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of jobs.
Quite frankly, I'd rather use Dylan Davis right now.
I was going to say
I would
Dylan
rather
is
use
probably
Dylan's
moving up the
Dylan
ranks
right
past Tyler at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are saying top 10, and I think we just named 10 or 12 jockeys that we'd all use well before him. So, and I think there's sort of this narrative that he's top 3 or 4 kind of a thing.
no one. Who's saying that? Find me these people. I need to talk to them.
There's
I just
lots
think-
of like 65-year-old white guys that think Tyler Gaffalione is just the next coming of fucking Pat Day.
Well, if you watch Churchill, he looks great, but he's racing against some pretty horrific rides, and I mean, he knows how to ride Churchill, so great. But that's it.
No, he knows how to ride the turf. I mean, I think he's a better turf rider, and he's, I mean, he has his moments, but he gets good mounts too. I mean, to Mark's point, like he gets a lot of really good mounts from Chad, from Shug, and the thing about Tyler is he gets, he gets a bunch of different trainers, using him. So you'll see him pop up on a lot of different horses. He'll ride for Asmussen, pretty regularly, and so you'll see him in a bunch of circuits. And yeah, I've never been enthralled with Tyler as a jockey. I think he has his strengths. One angle I do usually like is when he's on a Brendan Walsh horse on the turf, and that's usually not bad. But that's usually more, in my opinion, of Brendan than anything else. But it's interesting when you start getting into it, and I think honestly, it speaks to, that when you get beyond the top tier, it's like kind of in the eye of the beholder a little bit, and you're like, it depends what type of horse. Like to your point, Mark, like if I have a speed horse, sure, I'm calling Juan Hernandez first. Like get the horse out of the gate, like let's go, sort of thing. If I have a deep closer, Josh, I'm calling Joel Rosario because I know he's going to get that horse home. And I want a horse that fits him. So, it really does speak to the landscape of the jockey colonies right now that we're struggling to maybe come up with some other names after the top two.
If you got the best horse, and you want him to finish second, you call Luan Machado because he might not know where the finish line is. Daniel Young actually brought up a good one, Miramati, which is kind of a horse that had a bunch of steam. And just like he gets favored all the time out west.
Crazy money for him. Like they paid millions and millions. I don't remember what the number was, 2.5 or something for him, and they paid a crazy amount of money for him. And it took him 10 starts or something to break his maiden, and he had to find a soft enough field. So I mean, he's that's a perfect one that I didn't even think of.
Yeah, the problem paying that much money for a horse that needs Lasix is you can't run in stakes races. So, oops.
All right. So we're gonna get to some positive awards now. 2024 Race of the Year, actually no. Before we get that, I forgot we didn't go through some of the. We didn't actually name the winner, which was I think Matthew, you and I nailed it once again, right? It was Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone won the Money Burner of the Year. It was pretty easy. Some good. Irad Ortiz actually got two votes. One was Irad Ortiz, and one was Wednesday Irad. So very specific. Very specific there.
Wednesday Irad's good.
Actually, no, Irad got 3 votes because I see Irad Ortiz and Cogburn in the Breeders' Cup. So, definitely got very specific there.
One of those votes is definitely Barry Spears. I'm just like Barry, known Irad disliker. I shouldn't say that. Barry likes Irad, but he was the one who turned me onto this angle. He just completely distrusts Irad on a speed horse, and that he doesn't know how to judge fractions very well on the front end, which I would say that maybe is the one thing you're right. He's not great at.
I mean, he should talk to his brother because his brother seems to do okay on the lead. So, once again, Mr. Detailed Answers, I wish I knew who this was, said Sahin Savachi is the most overrated jockey around and loses on way too many horses that should win, favorite or not. Matt is laughing because Matt is noted Woodbine connoisseur over there, perhaps a man of class, as some of our friends call it. Can you agree?
No, I think Savati is probably like the best jockey at Woodbine, to be honest. Man. Although he gets on Cassie Monsters like everyone else, and so it's him and Hernandez just duking back and forth. But
actually, Mark, Caleb, and I were talking about the bug that just came from Woodbine. It came down to Aqueduct. Sophia Vives.
Yeah,
she is very good.
She's good.
The female jockeys in Canada were fantastic, and actually, I'm blanking on the other one who actually had a spill when Woodbine was going through all their.
Oh, Emma Jane Wilson. Yeah,
Emma Jane Wilson, who's still recovering. Yeah. She is a fantastic jockey as well, and I hope for a speedy recovery for her because she, she's a fantastic jock up there. There's actually some pretty good riders up there, and so, I don't know. Savatgy's fine though. I don't know how he's doing at Aqueduct now. I don't think that great. Or
He's got I think he's got 2 wins maybe so far, a couple of mounts, and so
he's moved around a lot. But yeah.
It is interesting that we saw Savatgy and Sophia come down this year, and I think it's interesting because obviously we have the Tapeta synthetic track coming in at Belmont, the new Belmont Park, and I think it's interesting that some of these Woodbine jockeys are starting to come down to New York now over the winter to start building up relationships, to start getting familiar with the horses, the trainers, just the area a little bit more, and might be set up for some big winter campaigns on a surface that they know how to ride really well. Obviously, coming down from Woodbine, so interesting connection. I think
you want a hot take.
You
guys want a hot take? Mark is closing his eyes. There are 2 jockeys that absolutely need to go back to New York and start building those bridges, because I think once that synthetic track goes in, they're going to be really good.
The ones you're going to say,
and
be more wrong.
And they are 2 of possibly the biggest money burners in the history of Saratoga.
You're going to say Julian.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to say...
We've talked about him a ton already. They happen to share a nationality and a nickname, apparently.
You think it's Flo?
Yeah. Yep. Because you know what happened the first time everything flipped to synthetic? Literally the only reason I think Julien Leparoux is still a employed jockey is because of the first time everything flipped over to the synthetic, because he was just winning everything at Keeneland once they went to the plastic stuff, so the rubber. So I've always said I actually think Julien would do very, very, very well at Woodbine. I think he would do great up at Woodbine. But I think
why doesn't he go clean house at Turfway then?
Because I don't think he likes the cold. Because I mean, otherwise, I'm serious. It has to be it. It has to be it. Because why is he down? Where is he at? He's at Oak Lawn, right? Wait, it's cold there anyways. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know, man.
I don't know. Afraid of the cold. You heard it here first.
God. But just because Jessica Tugwell has let us know her other answers, I think I know who she picked for Money Burner of the Year. She abstained. She's such a positive person. Shout out to Jessica.
Jessica may be related to Ed DeRosa. I don't know. I don't know. I like Jessica more, but I like Ed a lot too.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Now we can move on to Race of the Year here. This is the first unanimous, and I think it's actually the only unanimous award that's coming from us. Right, the people had some different takes, but it was pretty. It was pretty clear winner. But we all picked a Travers as the Race of the Year.
That's pretty easy.
I really, I mean, I don't really know what to say, but it basically had everything. Almost everything for some people, because I think some people would have much preferred Torpedo Anna to win and get there.
Got a mildly competent ride. Yeah, that would have been cool.
I mean, that race basically had, I think, everything you wanted in a race. I don't know. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mark, you can attest to this. I think that, we've talked about this off camera a little bit, and I've brought this up in a couple of other places. Saratoga this year felt different because we had the Belmont Stakes up there. And I think that took a lot of energy out of opening day at Saratoga, because so many people had been up just a month before. A lot of people had made the pilgrimage to Saratoga for that race in the Belmont Stakes. And so you just didn't have the same sort of enthusiasm. The day that Saratoga felt like Saratoga on a big day was the Travers. Torpedo Anna brought that energy. And I think for that reason alone, Ken McPeak should be the trainer of the year, because he injected something into the sport it's sorely needed, which was a superstar, which was a storyline. And good Lord, she delivered. I mean, she ran a hell of a race, and Fierceness ran a huge race. Sierra Leone was burning money. and Batten Down was running the race of his life halfway through the stretch, and then finished fourth. But and Anna Marie was somewhere in eighth place. But it was an amazing race. It was an amazing atmosphere. The energy was palpable. I was standing by Torpedo Anna in the paddock the entire time. They kept her separate. She was so drenched in sweat. Just so hyped up for this race. Muscles were rippling. She was looking at every single person. It was an amazing experience. And then I will just share anecdotally, my moment of the year for me personally was right after this race. I found myself in the winner's circle, standing right next to Ken McPeak and Mike Rapoli. And Ken McPeak got Mike's attention and said, "Hey, congratulations on a great race." And Mike Rapoli, as only Mike Rapoli can, looked back at Ken McPeak and said, "I never want to see that fucking horse again. You keep her against the girls." And it was a moment that you had to be within 5 feet to hear it, and it was just fantastic. And my appreciation of those two men really increased that day, just to see that race and God, Mike Rapoli talked to the groundskeeper and the maintenance crew for 25 minutes after that race about the track conditions. And, he goes, "You tried to screw me. You tried to screw me. You tried to slow it down. You tried to help Sierra Leone. I know you did." And after Chad had complained in the Jim Dandy. And so it was, it was just, it was an amazing day, an amazing, amazing day. And Mark, I know you were there, and that was, just a really special one.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the vibe that day was, it finally felt like Saratoga for a meet that really didn't for the most part of it. I think even more, you effectively, if you look back at that race, you had the winner of the distaff who runs second. You have the you have Fierceness, who what was second in the Classic. Then you have the winner of the Classic was all in that race. And I think at that point in time, there was a lot of hype around Dornoch, who had won the Haskell, and he was, at that point in time, we were wondering, geez, is this just a horse that we all overlooked at that point in time, and he might be a monster? He was also in that race. So when you look back at that field, that was the best field assembled, at that, in the year that I found anywhere. It lived up to the hype, the Philly going versus the boys, and I think that was just a really great scene. It was an amazing race, great time to be there. One of those moments that, I kind of look back like Saratoga moments, because I've been there a lot, and that day was, that race was probably top 10 for me. That was in a year, I think, that had a lot of letdowns. This isn't the year where I was super excited about any division or super excited about a lot of horses. That was the day I look back and go, yeah, that was really cool. That was awesome to be there.
Matt Carlson, was it Travers enough to maybe con you into going back to Saratoga next year?
Maybe. We'll see. I mean, I was going to say that I think of anyone, right, Kenny McPeak had far and away the best year. And I was never a Kenny McPeak fan before this year. I thought he was, kind of that smoke blower, right? Of he'd always tell you his horse is live, and then the horse would just run out the back, and it's like, what the hell happened? And obviously winning solves a lot of ills between, Mystic Dan and Torpedo Anna and all that. But I mean, the more you listen to Kenny, I mean, he's just a genuine trainer, right? He'll take chances. He's sent horses over to Ascot before, right? I mean, it's just, I was never a Kenny McPeak fan until this year. And I think I changed my tune drastically, not just because of the winning, but because of how he's doing it and how genuine he seems with everything he did this year, right? And all the success. I mean, it was well earned for him. If he doesn't win Trainer of the Year, that's, an absolute travesty. He should run away with it, in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully we get more races like that, because that would definitely bring me back to the track. I did not make it up there this year, Josh, to your point. So,
well, you picked a great day to go the year before, so.
I did, and I have a little bit of PTSD from that still. So it's like, there's parts of the track I still can't go to. So, but anyway.
If you guys don't know the reputation perhaps that Matt C has among some of our friends, let's just say that he's got a bit of a Grim Reaper vibe to him. So maybe it's
Got
best
a-
you don't go back to
I
Saratoga.
bet a lot
honestly.
of DNFs, yes, and
Yeah.
yeah. So the EQ amp is great in my betting lines for sure. So
Yeah, the Travers was pretty unanimous here. We had 2 people vote for the Kentucky Derby. Actually, no, 3 people vote for the Kentucky Derby.
I'll give you one guess where those 3 people live.
Kentucky.
Yeah, bingo. Yeah, they think that allowance race that they run every May is a really good one. But until they bring Bob back, I don't know why we even celebrate that race. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
I mean, they'll also remind you that Linda goes down there to claim horses to bring New York to eat everyone's lunch. So
No, it's fantastic. I mean, yeah, that claiming trip to Churchill is dynamite.
yeah, three votes for the Kentucky Derby, it looks like. And we got a Breeders' Cup Classic mentioned in there, which I don't hate. I thought it was an exciting race,
was a good
even
race.
if I did
I
lost
went
money.
back and forth between the Classic and the Travers for my vote. The Travers having the Torpedo Anna angle, I think, kind of cinched it for me. But the Classic was a very good race this year. I mean, 14 horses. You had horses from different. I mean, City of Troy. You had the big 3-year-olds this year. You had some other outsiders like Next and a few others. So it was a good race. So I definitely respect that take.
Yeah.
Trish in the chat saying Travers race of the year. Couldn't agree more there. One person voted for the Saudi Cup.
That was thrilling. That was maybe one of the coolest moments of the year was watching Junior's wife and kids celebrate as they realized that, oh my God, our husband / father just won like a $12 million purse with Senior Buscador. I mean, that was pretty incredible.
I think actually that might have been one of the times I think I gave that one out on like a short or something, and that felt pretty good. Yeah, Daniel Young saying the Derby was good because it was good for his ilk.
Yeah.
Since Mystic Dan won, so man, it feels like forever since that Derby. I don't know. This year felt both short and long for numerous reasons, but continuing on the before we get to horse of the year, we have one named the Whitmore Award, which is coolest horse. I know our friend Chase, the Wolf Folk Lawn, probably appreciated the name of this. I know Mark's also a big Whitmore fan, and I know I've definitely said negative things about Whitmore because I've bet against him numerous times. But yeah, the coolest horse award, and this was this award basically was single-handedly won because of our votes. Because I think there was only one or two other votes for the winner in outside of the 5 of us here. But I will go to, we're gonna start with you, Matt DeSantis, because you got one that I don't think no one else put down. So,
Yeah.
what do you got?
Yeah, the coolest horse for me, and there were a lot of really good contenders I thought this year, but I went to a horse who I always get excited when he runs. He won a bunch of big races this year, and Twitter usually blows up after he wins those races with a lot of gifs and memes, and that is Carl Spackler, who I think is a cool horse. If nothing else, it just allows me to use Caddyshack memes constantly. And I don't know. I just really like that horse. I think he's a pretty horse as well. He's got a big, beautiful face, I think. And I really like that horse. And I was glad to see him win a bunch of grade ones this year up in Saratoga. He loves it up there. And it was cool to see him win the 4-Star Dave and some of those other big races. And so I was a big fan of that one. And I just think he's a cool horse. So I like Carl Spackler quite a bit, but that's just a personal favorite of mine. But like I said, a lot of cool horses. And I think, honestly, if I really had spent more time thinking about it, like this is the type of award I would give to a horse like a Cinnaboya that I would, that I like. Like a few years ago, Mark would know a horse like Mia Bear or something like that, or Big Tony or something like that. There are these horses that are running at small tracks that just kind of take your heart and you just love them.
I think I attributed the wrong things to you.
Oh, okay.
Because the one that had Flow on Idiomatic as the worst ride of the year had Cogburn as the Whitmore Award. Did you vote twice?
I did not vote twice, and I definitely did not vote for Cogburn as the coolest horse. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I will fix that. So interesting. Because I was like, you were talking about it, and I was like, really, I don't think Twitter ever blows up because of Cogburn, but okay. All right, that makes more sense. Mr. Matt Carlson, you also went a different direction.
I did. I went with Moira, and Moira is going to win, older turf female horse of the year. The coolest thing I think about that is, I think there's an argument to be made that turf is probably her worst surface. I do think that horse is bred for like synthetic, right? I mean, that's a ghost sapper. Like that horse could run on anything, and to be the best older turf female of the year on arguably a surface that, like, theoretically she's not even the best at. That's just cool to me, right? I mean, that horse obviously showed what she can do at the Breeders' Cup, but has, kind of had never run a bad race, right? Even when she was losing, finishing second and third, even you could see that effort, no matter the surface, no matter what. And I do think those horses that are just incredibly versatile and can kind of run on anything, that to me is cool, right? Can just, never has a bad race, always shows up. So, I'm happy, actually. I mean, it's sad that she, entered the sales, but she might still be running somewhere come next year. And that's cool to me too, right? I mean, I love horses that keep running. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next category, I think. But yeah, so Moira, far and away to me, was kind of the coolest horse of the year.
Yeah, the three of us all took, myself, Mark, and Caleb all kind of took the same horse here. And it's funny because I probably like this horse the least out of them, specifically going into the Breeders' Cup. But by golly, if these two didn't convince me to somehow put this horse on my ticket still, even though I knew it was just the dumbest idea in the world. But Mark, I'll let you wax poetic about your boy.
Yeah, no, I love Next. Next is just a cool horse. And I mean, I think there's something to be said about super competitive divisions, and it's great to see, horses taking turns beating up on each other. It's also really cool to see a horse that's just utterly dominant. A horse that just every time he shows up on the track, he's going to win. And it's not even going to be competitive when he's doing his thing. And that was just Next. And I remember walking in, it was one of the days Caleb was up at Saratoga, and I did kind of a YouTube short as I was walking through the barns. And it's just the fact of, and I can't remember, it was the Saratoga race he ran in Matt, and Matt probably knows the name of the race. The Birdstone, I think it was. It was the Brooklyn or the Birdstone?
Oh, Birdstone.
So I was walking to watch the Birdstone, and it's like a 4-horse field, and he's going to win by 30 lengths, and you don't care. You just want to be there to see the scene. And, to be able to say, I was there when. And then there's very few horses in, recent times that have been that level of dominant at that sort of a level. And, and I realize, you can make an argument for, the whatever. He's in a division that isn't that deep. And, there's a lot of asterisks you can put there, but it's just very, very cool to see a horse that he's been around for quite a period of time. He's been utterly dominant that period of time. He's from a really small barn who clearly just love him to the moon and back. They took their shot in the Classic. He didn't have his day. But other than that, he just was a horse that every time he showed up on the track, you knew what you're going to get. Super honest, ran an absolute huge race. And, you can say, geez, it's just because he was a marathoner. But, if you look at like his come home fractions in that Birdstone race, they were freakishly fast. He just takes a little while to kind of get cranked up and get going. So just a really cool horse. And you love to see more of those that are fan favorites that come back year after year.
Well said.
Caleb, you also picked Next, but you also had an asterisk, or you had an additional horse that you mentioned. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, we all picked Next. This is why we bring the Matts on the shows, because we think too similar, apparently. But I had to give a shout out to my boy, the Chosen Vron, out west. He's, what is he now, like 5 or 6 years? I guess maybe 6 now. It's January, and I mean, he just shows up every single time. You know, he takes care of business against Calbreds a lot of the times, but then he steps up into the Bing Crosby and some other grade 1, grade 2, Pat O'Brien, some other stakes. And he just, he just runs his race every time. He can do it on the lead. He can do it off the pace. Doesn't always, travel or ship, or rarely travels or ships for that matter. So that's kind of why I did go for next, because I really respected the connections, kind of taking that shot in the Classic, despite, admittedly that not being the right distance for him. But so I did give it to next because I respected that. That's a very sporting move, I thought. But Chosen Vron, another very cool horse who just ultra consistent, a horse that it just continues to run and tries his heart out, takes on all comers, and look forward to continuing to watch him run, I think, throughout 2025.
He's like a good version of that who was that horse, the New York bred that like won like every single New York bred race, and then every time he like went into graded stakes company, he just got his face kicked in.
Oh, was it it was a huge horse. I want to say it was Mr. something.
I'm trying to remember.
Who
is it? Mr. Buff?
Mr. Buff?
No, that might be right, Mr. Buff. No.
I feel like I was expecting it to be like, oh yeah, that's it, but that doesn't feel right. But I think it is right. I think it is Mr. Buff. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like, when you said
trying...
a huge horse, I just thought of Rock Hard 10. Now that I just can't think of anybody else other than that horse.
Yeah, no, it is Mr. Buff. Yeah, that's who it is.
Is it Mr. Buff?
Okay.
Is that who it is? Yeah. Yeah, it's just funny. But yeah, no, I the Chosen Vron was actually I was between basically next and the Chosen Vron. I just, yeah, it's cool. Like honestly, and Mark and Caleb will attest to this. I love these long races. I love betting some random Chilean or Argentinian horse that gets shipped up, and they're like, we're going to run this horse 3 turns. Because they still breathe for stamina down there, and man, I still think about the marathon. It was Breeders' Cup weekend, and there was just some random Chilean horse that got shipped up, and he was like 21-1 or 25-1 or something. And if that and I, who I got beat by? You know who I got beat by? I got beat by the damn corpse of Rocketry. He just came back from the dead, hadn't won a race in like 2 years, and all of a sudden decides to win this stupid race. I thought I was home free, and Rocketry booms me, and I don't know, for some reason I'm still just a sicko, and I love these long races. I mean,
why is Dan in Rocketry? There you go. It's just coming back from the dead like Lazarus.
I'm telling you, like. The reason I really like the division is it just gives a place for these horses. It just, I think, a division for like horses, like, because you look around and like how many 6 furlong, 7 furlong, 1 turn mile races do we run? I mean, a million of them. Right. I mean, and every variation, 6.5, right? Oh, 7.5. Like, I mean, it's just like we run just a million of these. So it's just nice to see, like, hey, these, classic distance horses gives them a place to run, gives these Curlins a place to run, right? Gives these, who's the other real big, these Tappets, right? And the place to run. Like, I don't know. I just think it's cool. It gives another place for them to to kind of run, and then you get a cool horse like Next, who just goes out, does his thing, beats people by 30 lengths, and you know what? I appreciate the connections, given a shot in the Breeders' Cup Classic, even if it didn't turn out didn't turn out the way it did. And Mystic Dan, or not Mystic Dan, Chosen Vron, just being a Calbred, and all of a sudden just. It wasn't, maybe was it last year? It was the first year he ran in like open graded stakes company, and just started rattling off wins there too. So that was really cool. Daniel Young saying that likes Senor Buscador this year. He's another cool horse. Yeah, definitely. They keep running him, and yeah, it's cool to see these horses run later and later. You know, just seeing 5 and 6 year old, hard knocking horses is just a cool thing. Especially just running for stakes purses. So. Chosen Braun got a couple of got another vote. I saw Mayday Ready got a vote. I believe this is our friend Andrew Champagne wrote Sierra Leone as the coolest horse, and there's definitely nothing cool about Sierra Leone.
He's an ornery horse, I'll tell you that, but he is he's not particularly cool.
I did see 2 votes for Torpedo Anna, which I get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I get. The story is really cool, so that makes sense.
And to Matt's point earlier, Kenny did I thought a phenomenal job campaigning her this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he gave the people what they wanted, and I think what made the Travers, and this is the point I was going to say earlier, what made the Travers was that she came back and won the Cotillion and she won the Distaff, and it wasn't that thing where running her against the boys ruined her. She's not going to be the same. No, she came back and she's just the class. And she's going to have a huge, 4-year-old campaign too. So, yeah, she's a cool horse. I get that. I mean, these usually go to smaller, that kind of second tier horse that's a little bit cooler. But out of the superstars, she's a cool one.
Yeah, because I remember. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Do we know if Idiomatic's back next year?
Was that?
Because do we know if Idiomatic is back next year? Because
no, she's retired.
Is she retired? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember a couple of years, or maybe it was 2018, 2019, there's a horse called Wonder Godot that I think ran pretty well in the
Didn't she win the Canadian Triple Crown or close to it or something?
She won the main one. Was it the Queen's Plate at the time?
Queen's Plate.
But she ran in the Oaks and ran like 3rd or 4th, I think. Ran decent. But then I think that was one that they tried against the boys, and it just went really bad. And I think the horse was never the same again after that. Just never really won again. And I feel like that's kind of that could have just as easily happened, right? With Torpedo. But what's funny is Torpedo Anna reminds me a little bit of was it She Dares Devil or
Swiss Skydiver?
Swiss Skydiver. Thank you. I forget. I knew it was a Daredevil horse. Right, because I think Swiss Skydiver is also Daredevil, right? Yeah, it's just it's cool to see. No, she's more than ready. No, she's Daredevil. Yeah, no, I was right. It's just cool to see these horses. These owners and these trainers take a shot. I just love to see that. So because I think too often, right, we as fans and as bettors, sometimes we just I think complain about some of these candy ass campaigns that we get with horses. And it makes it feel kind of hard to be a fan of certain stuff. So.
I will interrupt Josh briefly just to say I did just see breaking news that DRF is reporting that Santa Anita is planning to race Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
Oh,
that is surprising, but that's hopefully good. Hopefully good.
Hopefully everybody's safe and
yes.
Everybody's healthy and
yeah.
But I just saw that come across.
Good. I can tell our friend of the show, Road Warrior, must not have voted. I was fully expecting to see at least one Warlike Goddess vote in there.
Or our friend Dan.
Yeah.
Or not Dan, Dave. Yeah, sorry.
Well, Dave has some other stuff going on.
Yeah, shout out to Dave. So actually, I didn't get to mention this, right? So I'm actually drinking a bottle of Eagle Rare here. If you look on here, there's a sticker for it's Alameda Liquor. You can't see it. This is actually after we hit a group ticket, Dave sent this bottle to me. Because it's easy to find in California, but impossible to find here. But Dave does live in Southern California. He's near there. He's safe as far as we know right now. Everything is okay. Some of his friends, I think, are having, not as good of a time as he is. I know, Mark, you've got another friend who, or someone that has been affected. So thinking obviously about all those people out there, and yeah, same thing. Think about the horses, the horsemen, the track workers. I mean, I think sometimes people forget, like, oftentimes the people who work on the backside live on the backside. So those people who,
Yeah.
you're talking about evacuating the horses, like, there are people living there literally across the street from those fires. So hopefully everyone's safe. Hopefully they're able to conduct safe racing if it's possible. Great. Yeah, so hopefully things there clear up, and we get some good news with those fires. But last but not least, and so next, obviously, won the coolest horse, carried mostly by the votes from On the Wrong Lead. We did have a couple other people vote next as well. Actually, we have to shout out Just Tugwell, because I actually don't know this horse. So maybe one of you guys can fill me in. She put Direct the Cat down. So that sounds like, if I had to guess, that sounds like a Maryland bred. I don't know why, it just sounds like a Maryland bred. I'm going to actually Google it.
West Virginia bred.
Yes.
West Virginia bred.
Yeah.
Where does this horse run?
Charlestown runner who's 8 for 11 lifetime, never missed the board.
That's wild.
That's a good horse to give this kind of award.
That is a just Tugwell horse. Yep.
Who's because wasn't there who was the Maryland bred that just that won one Laurel race like every single year? Is it Ben's Cat?
Yeah, Ben's Cat.
Yeah. Yeah, Jessica's in there close.
5 years in a row or something crazy
West
like
Virginia.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Cat
cool.
won a lot of other races as well. But
I'm actually a little surprised that Matt Carlson didn't go with Harmony and Blessed, or although you never seem to be on the right side of Harmony and Blessed.
There's plenty of time for HK talk.
But yeah. So congratulations to Next. I saw actually. Hey, shout out to Post Time, who literally got a vote in like 3 different categories here, 2 of them being negative. So shout out to Post Time there, because he got a vote for coolest horse. And then our boy Mr. Long Answer said, "I won't contribute to this. I don't know what it means, and I don't want to know."
Fair enough.
Which was basically my favorite response of anybody. So shout out to Long Answer guy. But Just Tugwell saying that she won her races by a combined 72.5 lengths. So for Direct the Cat. So that's
which is impressive at Charlestown. Like, that's not easy to do.
Yeah, that's like a full lap.
It's impressive if you run 5 times in a row at Charlestown and like continue to run after that. So or you don't decide to just randomly run back to the stables. Remember that race?
Yeah.
Where the horse literally took
Yeah.
took a right turn out the chute to go back to the stables. That was pretty funny. All right, 2024 Horse of the Year. Well, actually, we do have we have 2 dissenters. So I guess we'll give time to the 2 dissenters. Mark, I'll let you go first here, because you have an interesting take here.
yeah, no, I used the Matt DeSantis approach here. I was listening to some stuff that Matt put out, and he was making this thing that normally Horse of the Year goes to the best. Effectively the voters look at it. If I was to run a match race at 1.25 miles on dirt, who would win? And that's who gets Horse of the Year. And I think that's just not a good way of looking at this award. I think you have to look at this award of their entire body of work throughout the entire year. And I don't necessarily care what country they did it in, or were they a world traveler. and they only had one start in the United States. So I want Rebels Romance with this. He won his one race in the United States. He only had one loss on the year. That was in Ascot, which is sometimes a funky surface. He won in, I can't remember if it was Dubai or Saudi. He won one of the turf races, or I think it was the Golden Shima. I think he won in Dubai, and I think he also won in either Japan or Hong Kong. I mean, he was a world traveler. He went and showed up, won races, and did it on a global stage. And he faced everybody. They didn't care who they were running him with verse, and he won. And then obviously he won the Breeders' Cup. The Breeders' Cup Turf. So, when I think about the award, I don't care what surface you won or ran at. I don't really care what the distance is. I want to look at the horse that had the best body of work throughout the entire world. And he did have his one start to make him eligible for this. So I want Rebels Romance.
Now that I think about it, Matt Carlson, who I thought maybe you'd have picked for coolest horses, like someone like Romantic Warrior. Just because he kind of had a cool little campaign, right?
We got to table that for 2025. He's running in the Saudi Cup this year, right? So.
In the Saudi Cup, or he's running in the turf?
No, he's running on dirt.
He's running on dirt.
They moved him.
Oh
over.
man,
that's the big story. That race is going to be race of the year.
That's hilarious.
It's going to be a fantastic race. So yeah, let's wait a year from now to save that. But yeah,
I know you were a little Hong Kong tinged here, so
I did, and I will say, like, Rebels Romance I almost debated that horse for coolest horse. I mean, I've never seen a horse travel like that in my life. I was completely against that horse so many times because I'm like, the travel's got to catch up to that horse. Never did. Fantastic. I went full Hong Kong on this, and I went to Kaiying Rising. For those who don't watch Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong lost its biggest star that it had, who retired in Golden 60 this year, right? Golden 60 was like the dream horse, right? And Hong Kong only runs certain configurations, right? I mean, they run either a mile or they run 6 furlongs on turf, and there's some in between, but the biggest races are just those two. Kaiying Rising is 4 and set a track record this year, a 17-year track record on a course that they run 200 races a year on. So that's tens of thousands of entries over the past 17 years that this horse shattered. And you'll see this horse running for at least 3 or 4 more years because all the horses in Hong Kong are geldings. They don't retire. This horse has rattled off 8 straight wins against the best in the country. These horses are probably the best in the world at turf sprints, right? They're bred to do that. That's all they do. And this horse just demolished everything that was put in front of it for the entire year. So short of seeing anyone else that stood out and had that body of work, Kaiying Rising to me far and away had the best year, and I'm happy for Hong Kong that has another star to really lean on and point to. And if you're not watching Hong Kong horse racing, you all should. So.
And you should also listen to "You've Got to Be Shot Tinning Me," available on the Wrong Lead Network.
Shameless.
Like and subscribe, exactly. Yeah, outside of you two, there was only one dissenter. And it was also Mr. Long Answer, who actually picked Sierra Leone as the 2024 Horse of the Year. Wait, actually, Sierra Leone got a vote for Horse of the Year, got a vote for Coolest Horse, got a vote for Money Burner of the Year, or got multiple votes, one Money Burner of the Year. I guess the only place that horse didn't get a vote was the Caleb Knight Award, the Worst Ride of the Year, but there could be an argument.
There might be an argument there somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the Commandperformance Award.
Given the stretch run in the Derby, I guess you could make an argument for it, right?
Yeah. So that's funny. But everybody else, the public, ourselves, the rest of us, we voted Torpedo Anna as the winner of 2024 Horse of the Year. I think very, very deserving winner. I think, it's to Mark's point, right? It's easy to be like, well, she lost against the boys, right? She lost against Fierceness, right? Who then lost to Sierra Leone. So, right. Yeah. But if you look at the work she did in her own division, I mean, far and away, I think, in my opinion, the best campaign of the American horses this year. Matt DeSantis, I'll let you go. Like, what do you got to say about Torpedo Anna?
Yeah, I think she had no competition in her own generation against her own sex. She ran against the boys in a race that was impossibly hyped, and yet she still somehow managed to run, her eyeballs out that day, proving. I will give a shout out to our good friend Shu on Twitter, proving that buyer speed figures are sexist. Because amazingly, she ran 18 points faster than her previous race against girls. She was never fast before, and then suddenly she ran that race. She was fast. It's amazing how that works. But jokes and snarkiness aside, she had, Mark referenced, one of my shows that I did where I talked about my votes for, what I would vote for in this, and thinking about this horse of the year much more holistically, thinking about the cultural impact on the sport, thinking about the impact it had on betting, the impact it has on generating new fans. I can't tell you the number of little girls, old women, middle-aged men who had pink hats on at Saratoga. My colleague Kaylee Shapiro tells the story that she walked up into the track on Travers Day at about 7 a.m. and were greeted by two 80-year-old women with Torpedo Anna T-shirts that were homemade. And these two 80-year-old women said, "We don't think we'll ever see something like this again." And I mean, it's those types of stories that make you just go, this horse meant something to people in a way that the average horse might mean something to us who are betting on it, might mean something to those of us who handicap on it. But this horse really touched something inside of people, and just really special. And again, going back to what Matt had talked about earlier, the way she was campaigned, the way Kenny managed her, the access that McPeak gave was just astounding, and was so antithetical to everything else every other breeder and trainer is doing right now, where it's so guarded, so many non-answers, and you got nothing but honesty from him. You got nothing but media exposure. You saw it every day on social media. Every workout was publicized. You knew if that horse took one wrong step, you knew about it within 10 minutes of it happening. And I just thought it, did more for the sport, generated more handle for the sport than any other horse in the year. So I think, in a race, in a sport that is defined by gambling, she did a lot for it. And so that's why I had her horse of the year.
Yeah, I have a hard time sometimes. Like I talk about this a little bit on Drinking Champagne. Andrew has covered the sport professionally. Has written articles. Covered it very, very closely. Been on TV, all that kind of stuff, right? And so, like, it's literally been his job. So, for me, as a content creator, as a bettor, first and foremost, and content creator basically second, like for me, sometimes it's tough. Like, and I was talking about it sometimes with the Eclipse Awards, for example. There's best breeder, right, or best owner, and I'm like, this is stuff like I don't think about, right? Yeah, maybe I look at the sire, right? Or I look at breeding for maiden races, right? And I'm looking at sire stats. I'm looking at that, right? But like, I mean, it literally wasn't until like 2 years ago that I knew that Godolphin blue hat thing was a thing. You know what I mean? Like I
white cap
silks, white cap, yeah, like silks. Like I don't know what is what, right? I mean, I knew what the Ravelli or the Patricia Hope silks looked like, but that's because I saw them all the time. But like that kind of stuff, like to me, like I don't know, like that's not, as a bettor to me, like not really important. Like yeah, like I said, bloodlines and stuff like that, that's important. But like best breeder, I'm like, I don't freaking know. I mean, I know TaylorMade has got Not This Time, but only because I was there and I saw Not This Time, like otherwise I would have never known, like, hey, that, that's the breeder for this or whatever. Like, but I think you bring up a really good point where what Torpedo Anna did this year, right, as both like a better, like when I went on social media, Kenny knew the game. Yeah, Kenny was posting pictures, was posting workouts, was hyping his horse up, and I think Kenny's one of the few guys maybe who gets it, right.
He's a showman.
This is what people want, and like we're gonna take this like probably places that we didn't think this was gonna go, but Japan. Japan does this like really cool thing where they take their horses and they make them into plushies.
Yep.
And right, it's something so stupid, right? Mr. Matt Carlson over there with who is that? I forgot. Is that Golden 60?
That's Golden 60, yeah.
Yeah, Golden 60. Yeah, so a Hong Kong horse, but like something so like right, like innocuous and whatever. People go crazy over these plushies because people like the horses, right? I got sent was I think Gold Ship. My buddy Murphy Greg sent me a horse from Japan, a little plushie of Gold Ship. My wife loves it. She doesn't even know the horse, but she's like, "Oh, this is so cute." Whatever. Like, but like people don't get that, right? Everyone is still really close to the vest, right? Is very, oh, like you got trainer speak and stuff like that. And yeah, right. Kenny's a salesman. He's a bullshitter, right? And he's gonna run Classic Causeway, in the biggest turf race in the world for no reason whatsoever because he just can. But yeah, I think I joke a lot about how I hate good stories, right? We've talked about Cody's Wish or other horses like that, right? And just how I don't the Sheik, yeah, right. Shout out to the Sheik, right? Congratulations. But like and like yeah, like the reason I don't like them, or I don't like them, is because they ruin value, right? If you actually like the horse, like. All right, like great, like every single person's going to bet on all the common man and stuff, but I digress. Like stuff like I think Torpedo Anna is a little bit different because I just think like you said, like it's a cool horse. I think the same thing with the Triple Crown. Triple Crown is cool because people still think it's a big deal, right? Whether you think it is a big deal or not, like I mean, whatever, that's up to you. But like you go up to the average, we'll say slightly older than us, perhaps, like like average like 50-year-old or whatever, and then you talk about Triple Crown or something like that, and they'll be like, oh yeah, like I remember watching American Pharoah win, or I remember watching whatever, like that's cool, like I remember watching, what was it, Big Brown was the one the famous one that lost, right? Like people remember that kind of stuff, and I think I do think that there's definitely room for that kind of thing, right, in racing, right? I feel like sometimes sometimes the plot gets lost, right, because maybe tracks or places think that we want experiences, right? We want to sit in the 1863 club and pay entirely way too much for a cocktail, or drink every single cocktail off the menu because Caleb's dad's friends is paying for it. I mean, I don't know, maybe that happens, but and that stuff is fun, right? I love myself a good cocktail, but honestly, some of the most fun I've ever had at a track is sitting in the backyard with Mark, sitting in the chair, taking pictures with the damn stuffed animal horse thing that's walking around. Like I don't know. I feel like stuff like Torpedo Anna is good for the sport, right? It's good to get people excited for racing stories. I the human interest stuff, like I said, I can take or leave, but I think cool horses, cool racing stories like Torpedo Anna, and just the fact that hey, she was also dominant. I think that's awesome.
I still go back and watch, Rachel's 3-year-old campaign on YouTube, and I usually tear up at some point, same. When raising the rafters at the spa and just watching Calvin Burrell just wag his finger and saying, "You're not getting by her." And I mean, that's as good as it gets. And she had a really special year this year. And, I think it seems logical that she's going to be the horse of the year.
So how like it's funny, right? Because we've talked about this ad nauseum, where I've only been following racing for 7 years at this point, a little less than 7 years, right? Justify's Derby was literally the first time. I made a bet was Oaks Day before Justify won the Kentucky Derby, right? And I got 5-2 on Justify, and I thought that was the freest money ever, and hit the try, and I thought I was the smartest man in the world. And Funny Duck splashed home for a big win for me as well that day on the Pat Day Mile. Like I thought I was the most brilliant person ever. So, but every once in a while I just get I get kind of drunk, and like I go and I start watching, like, go on the YouTube videos, and even though I wasn't following racing, you know what replay I watch that sometimes gets me to tear up a little bit? It's the
Why not
Pizza
Burger?
Man.
Pizza
The
Man.
Pizza Man winning the Arlington Million is one of the freaking coolest calls you'll ever hear. The sound of the crowd, and like, as somebody who went to, I think, three or four Arlington Millions, I forget at this point. I mean, I was there every year I could before they closed down. Like, yeah, like even though I wasn't there, like listening to that and having that, like, and that just being, once again, just this cool horse, an Illinois bred, right, winning one of the biggest turf races in all of the US, like how cool that is. And then now you look at Illinois racing, and it's just crazy. But yeah, Brian saying Josh gets a little drunk, no way. Yeah, but
Caleb,
yeah.
I feel bad. We've been bogarting the time. You haven't been able to say much on Torpedo. I don't know if you had one.
No, you got. I mean, what can you really say about Torpedo Anna? She's a standout in this division, and I think, I guess to both you, Matt, and Mark's point, it's interesting on how you would qualify horse of the year. There's no objective criteria. I mean, is it the most talented horse? Is it the horse that has done the most for the sport? I mean, is it the feel good stories, the Cody's Wish type thing? So, to me, this wasn't a black and white decision, even though I did cast my vote, or my on the wrong lead vote for Torpedo Anna. I mean, if Fierceness or Sierra Leone would have had one more win this year, I'd have probably given it to either of them. Whether if Fierceness holds on in the Classic, I think he gets my vote, or if Sierra Leone gets up in the Derby, he would have probably gotten my vote. But they just kind of traded blows enough that I couldn't land on anybody in the male division. And Torpedo Anna has been such a standout, and for all the intangibles, what she's done for the sport. I mean, with Kenny McPeak, making the super sporting decision to go run the Travers, and which gave us the race of the year, not purely but mostly because of Torpedo Anna, in my opinion. I mean, it wasn't necessarily, Dornop didn't make that race of the year, although he was a contributor. I mean, it was Torpedo Anna is what made that race so memorable. I think that stretch run with Fierceness was just incredible. So yeah, she's been outstanding. I mean, I'm a little biased because I did get to see her in the paddock one day when I was at Saratoga. She wasn't even running that day, but Kenny McPeak posted on Twitter, said she'll be available for just schooling out in the paddock somewhere on a random Saratoga Friday or Saturday. So I got to go over there and take a picture. And I mean, that's the kind of horse she is. I mean, there's very few horses that I'm going to walk to the paddock to take a picture of who aren't even running that day. And Torpedo Anna is in that kind of rarefied air. So I think that's extremely cool. I mean, she took on every comer. She danced every dance. And she's just a very, outstanding filly. And she's going to campaign through 2025, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. No, she's probably going to make her debut in the Apple Blossom in all likelihood.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, I think that was one of the big takeaways I had for Horse of the Year, was the fact that the three finalists are 3 3-year-olds, and one of whom's a filly. It should tell you kind of everything you need to know about where the state of racing was in the older division in 2024. And thank God all 3 of these horses are coming back in 2025, because it's going to add a little bit more depth. And you have horses like Mystic Dan, who, we'll see how he ends up running, but you have a horse like Locked. Maybe White Abario finally figures something out, this every other year thing. Maybe he's the dirt version of Rebels Romance, just kind of takes an off year every other year, sort of a thing. Who knows? But it's, and then you have, Torpedo Anna. And then, you look forward to a promising group. We all, I think, were impressed by what Barnes did out in California in the Derby prep in the San Vicente, admittedly against a short field, but Bob's back in the Derby, and that, to Mark's point earlier, his horses generally run after that, and so they, and he'll have horses like Country Grammar and National Treasure that they'll run a little bit older and a little bit longer. And so, I think that's kind of what you have to hang your hat on. And, Brad Cox has got some nice fillies that are, just turning 3 years old, and, that's what makes the Distaffs division so good. So, hey, maybe by the end of the year, there's a 3-year-old who emerges, like a Good Cheer, a Muhina, Immersive when she comes back from a little bit of a layoff, that can maybe challenge Torpedo Anna this time next year. So, it's going to be, I think, an exciting 2025, and I think we're in a better spot, but not just fans, but ultimately going to be a better spot as bettors if we have these kind of fuller fields with more competitive races where there's not a even money favorite that you just go, well, I can't get around this horse, and so I guess we're just going to eat chalk, or we're just going to single, or whatever. But it's going to make it a lot more fun.
All right. Well, yeah, that's going to do it for us with the awards. I mean, anything else you guys want to talk about with the year that was racing in 2024? Mark, you got anything to wrap up?
No, man, I'm good. I think it was it's sort of a year where it was definitely kind of came into the year kind of soft, and I think you're gonna have some building blocks, like Matt was just saying, into next year where some horses are gonna return, and we're gonna see some familiar faces who hopefully take that step forward, and it should be a really competitive year going forward. Yeah, no, hopefully it's a year to build on.
Matt Carlson.
Yeah, I mean, looking forward to this year. Like I said, I think the Saudi Cup's going to be a fantastic race. I think Hong Kong is ever expanding, and that's where my focus has been. So, hey, but excited to get both domestic racing, maybe halfway to Hong Kong's level. So,
Matt.
Yeah, I gave my soliloquy already, so I'm good. But yeah, just excited for another great year up at Saratoga, obviously up here in New York, and yeah, just excited to also hit the road a bunch for Naira Bets, and that's one thing I'm really I'm excited. I'm going to be going down to Tampa Bay for the Tampa Bay Derby. Going to be going to Oaklawn for the Apple Blossom to see Torpedo Anna's return. By the way, hold your butts, everybody. Naira Bets is coming to New Jersey by Kentucky Derby time, so it's going to be very exciting that the NJ Bets monopoly is almost over there for ADW folks.
So
and
like 9 months after it was announced.
Yeah, well, listen, man, better late than never. The Naira Bet signage is already up, so we're good. And we might have sponsored a race that you couldn't even play in on Naira Bets for the first year. But
did you guys sponsor the Haskell? You guys sponsored
the
Haskell last year,
no,
right?
Okay,
making sure I wasn't misremembering this. Okay.
Yeah, we sure did do that, and so and hopefully I'll see you guys back out at Del Mar next year for the Breeders' Cup.
For some reason, I'm going through our alerts, and apparently I wrote this one that there's a 0% chance that Mark will have Cogburn on 0 of his tickets. Did you have Cogburn on any tickets, Mark?
I had Cogburn on 0 tickets, and Caleb did not walk back to Denver.
Caleb, what do you got?
Yeah, not too much. Last year was a bit weird for me, just because I was wrapping up a master's program, and I was so busy that I feel like I missed so much of racing in the first half of the year that by the second half of the year it was a lot of catch up and trying to kind of get situated again, and then moving and trying to settle into a new home. So this year I'm just excited to be able to sort of settle back into a routine and follow along with the races a little bit more closely. I mean, last year we did have a pretty good year as far as equine safety goes. I mean, no more super publicized tragic incidents. I think that's a great step in the right direction. So yeah, overall, I mean, a weird year for me, but it feels like a generally positive year for the industry, and hopefully we can keep that going.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I look back at like my handle, right? For example, my handle was way down last year. But I also feel like it was much more concentrated, right? I played a lot more Assiniboia Downs, which I did pretty well at. I obviously I played Saratoga almost every day, but I do that every year. But other than that, like I feel like I was a little bit more measured about stuff, and a little bit more. I was able to limit my losses, and I wasn't having as awful of a year. And honestly, I'm one $12 savings away from having a positive year last year. Shout out to that damn Saffy horse I cut off in that pick 5. Just real funny. So I told, because I have this tendency when I'm running hot, all of a sudden I start playing like way bigger pick 5 tickets than I normally do. Because normally I'll play like a $48, $54 ticket or something. And once I catch myself playing like $96 or $100+ tickets, I'm like, all right, am I really seeing the ball well, or am I just like firing because the ADW's fat right now? And I told myself that this year I wasn't going to let myself start firing fat just because I had money in the ADW. And so I had a $96 ticket, and I was going to fire it. And then I was like, wait, am I doing the thing and then I think I cut one horse to like make it like an $81 ticket or $72 ticket, and that horse won and cost me about $9,000. But so less of that this year, right? So I'm going back to my old ways. Fat Josh is back, not actual Fat Josh, because hopefully that continues to slim down. But Fat Ticket Josh, I'm not going to talk myself out of using that Saffy horse next round, but it'll be a fun year. And obviously, Caleb already explained. We were a little light last year due to the fact that Caleb was busy, but we're right back at it, I think, this year. So we'll be coming back with the regular live streams and stuff. We might alter the schedule a little bit and do a couple different things, but yeah, we'll definitely be back, and we'll be having some fun. So obviously check us out at onthewronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. Obviously check out Drank and Champagne to take a look at Andrew's Eclipse Award. I don't think we're going to have time to do Hong Kong this week, so just check out Slow and Steady's Matt Carlson's Twitter. He'll have picks up for that, and yeah, you can expect Drank and Champagne, and You've Got to Be Shot into Me every week, and some live streams coming your way. So yeah, Daniel Young, fat tickets are in for 2025. Ozempic tickets are out. So and then obviously check Matthew out on NairaBets.com, at NairaBets on Twitter or X. The Win Play Show is back, is it not?
Yeah, the Win Play Show's back for 2025, so we're rolling. You get my opinions, my hot takes, my thoughts. I'm just glad most people in the industry don't watch much past the 3-minute mark, and then I can talk to the real fans and the horse players. So yeah, a lot of fun doing that. And we're also starting, my colleague Kaylee Shapiro and I are starting a Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks prep series starting this coming week, where just weekly updates on the prep races, points, top 5 lists, kind of news, and all sorts of other stuff. So a lot of great content up there in addition to the race previews, full card analyses.
Personally, I'm most excited for the new show that you're going to be debuting when Saratoga starts. We're not gonna give away that. We're not gonna give away it, but I'm excited.
Chase Sessions is gonna be so happy.
Yeah. But for Mark, Matt, and Caleb, I'm Josh. Have a good weekend, everybody, and hopefully you had some fun.